Continuing along with learning the tarot, today we are talking about the Eight of Swords. So this is one of those cards that when it comes up in a reading, if you're not like used to the tarot, this card can sometimes be a little intense, to say the least. And now, of course, as I've mentioned, the artwork that they always reference in the two books that I'm using for my notes is the Rider-Waite. Honestly, a lot of the decks typically kind of stick with this same imagery for this one in particular that I have noticed, because this is one of those like super intense cards, and like a lot of times when it comes up, it's one I've seen plenty of times, let's put it that way. This has been a recurring card of mine. This has been one of those recurring cards that I've had right alongside the Tower that I always want to call the Tarot. I don't know why my brain just short circuits that word every time. The Tower card and the Eight of Swords have been like best buds for me for a very long time. So needless to say, when this one came up, I was like, oh yeah, that card. I know that one. So the imagery is always typically going to be a woman who is blindfolded, and she is usually surrounded by eight swords, kind of making a little circle of awful around her. And that's really what it feels like. So they'd also described in this, I think it was the Modern Witchcraft Guide to the Tarot book, this one they had talked about how the swords always represent thoughts and beliefs. So maybe that would make more sense. Where Wands is all about career, this is just like your brain malfunctioning on you. Because like 99% of these don't seem to be terribly positive. Like I guess some of them are, but a lot of them not really positive. But this one definitely is all about your thoughts and beliefs in your brain. So going with the imagery, this card, you have created your own sort of prison. And really honestly, this card, the way that I'm looking at this is, as somebody who deals with anxiety and like other mental like things going on, this feels like when you're not in check. Because when your anxiety is in like the driver's seat of your life, it's rough. It's real rough. And like, again, I can't speak for everyone and other disorders, but like going through anxiety, having that be the driver of your life at the moment is hard. Where every little thing you are afraid of. And it's not little things, and it's usually big stuff. Every little thing of your life, every single thought is basically ruled by that emotion. And it is exhausting. And that's what this card reminds me of. Because it's like getting into your car, immediately you're like, you got 13,000 different worries. Did you actually lock the house? You know you did, but you have to go check just to be sure. Then you're stressing about, okay, did I make sure I looked all around the car, make sure there's no like cats or kids around? Okay, but what if my camera doesn't work on the backup of my car? Oh my god. And then you start driving, and then every little thing you're analyzing, like you kind of need to, but in a very anxious sort of way, and you're very aware of other drivers. Again, outside of the norm, you're very worried about it, and you're constantly just like auto-assuming of like, but what would happen if? And then that can be a downward spiral, and just every little thought just creates a little sword around you, and you're just building yourself into this fear box, and it's awful. And again, that's like a minor example, but like truly, people who live with anxiety, you know that it's like every waking moment. What if I didn't wash my water bottle enough and now I have poison? Like, what if it has mold growing in it despite actually being washed? Like, how would you know? How would you know if you're like secretly dying from it slowly? How do you know that like you can really trust like the pipes that are running to your house to be like clean? How do we keep them clean? What if it's not actually, because you hear about other cities where they're really not good and like the water's like definitely not safe to drink. Like, how would you know? Like, you just spiral over every little detail. And it gets exhausting. And it feels like that energy where every little thing in your life causes you anxiety is this card. Like the way they described it is like, this is you are your worst enemy kind of a card, and like truly. And the way they described it is like your thoughts, beliefs, fears, all of that is what's holding you back. Again, my example is anxiety, but really it could be anything. You can have a lot of limiting beliefs, even if you don't necessarily like notice them. If you catch yourself always giving excuses and you love the victim role, it can get real addicting. And honestly, this card kind of reminds me to like check yourself, make sure you're not doing that. How are you actively going against that victim mentality? Because it can be really addictive. And it can be really hard to get out of that mindset because it is very easy to notice all of the bad things in your life and how you might not have gotten like the best hand in life. And like this card is like, do you see how those thoughts are making a little corner for you to just stay in and you can't leave all the time? That's what I'm thinking of with this card. Because honestly, some people live in the Eight of Swords their entire lives and they never leave it. They also talk about, even with it still being upright, that you do have a get out of jail card in your pocket, basically. You can control the little circle of chaos that you are stuck in. Like, you can dismantle those thoughts, beliefs, ideas that are holding you in. You can do it. You can fix it. But you have to actually do that. And really, just upright, it's just telling you that, like, these thoughts, fears, anxieties, whatever is what's holding you back right now. So if you're pulling this card and you're like, God, like, why can I never get a good partner? And then you pull this card, you are the problem. That Taylor Swift song kind of comes into play, that sound on TikTok that always circles around. Like, yes, me, hi, I'm the problem, that one. Yeah, you are the problem right now. No matter what the situation is, like, this card's like, you are what's going wrong. Again, the swords are very mean, honestly. Out of all of them, I think these are going to be the meanest. So reversed, once again, these cards just love to flip everything on its head. It's the good card when you get it reversed. Now, Idiot's Guide described this where if it's reversed, you've dealt with that prison of thoughts, whether it's beliefs, ideas, fears, anxieties, whatever it is, you have overcome it. And you're doing good now. You can have hope and joy and look forward to things again. Like, you're out of that prison, you're freed from it. That's how the Idiot's Guide describes it. Modern Witchcraft Guide, it's more of the journey of getting to that point. It's telling you to take action against those beliefs and those thoughts. And honestly, I think it would depend on where you're at in the reading and in your life on which one of those two meanings would kind of apply. Because if you're doing a reading and this is like in the past or even the present, it could mean that like you've dealt with those thoughts and beliefs that were holding you back in whatever the situation is that you're reading for. Or, especially in the present or even in the future like position, if we're just doing like a 3-card spread deal, like it could either mean that you need to deal with this stuff so that on the other end of this card alone, you would get over whatever your limiting thoughts and beliefs and fears are, or you've done that work and now you're moving on. It kind of depends on like what you're doing in your own life right now, and you kind of have to check in and be like, well, which of those two am I right now, you know? Because the Modern Witchcraft Guide is telling you that like this is a warning that you cannot continue to let these thoughts hold you back. It's only going to get worse if you don't deal with it. This is your call to action. This is your reminder, like, you need to deal with this. And you need to deal with these thoughts and beliefs that are holding you back. Otherwise, things aren't going to be good. You need to deal with it. And really, that can be an extremely difficult task to do. Like, you might need to pull like a separate card to help with that. But again, sometimes this is just, it's those memes where the swords are just yelling at you because it's like you need to deal with it and get over it and analyze, like, what are the little points holding you in, and like creating your own little prison. And lastly, it also talks about if it's reversed, that this is the time that you really need to try and think clearly. And honestly, if you are in an anxiety-ridden like mindset, that's really rough. Anxiety can seem very logical until you're out of it. And then you're like, what were you thinking? Like, anxiety specifically can be very, and even then, like any of like the negative thoughts and beliefs and ideas and whatever, they can be really convincing. And then sometimes you need outside perspective, sometimes you just need time, and then eventually you begin to realize like, wow, that was a really limiting belief. That was a really, like, the anxiety was in control. I wasn't in control anymore. Like, you have to really analyze it. So anyways, that is the Eight of Swords. Honestly, this was one of the cards that it's like, I know exactly what you're talking about here. Like, there's just a few, as you've, like, again, I haven't, like, professionally done readings, but there are a few cards that have come up so often that, like, even I know the meaning when it pops up. And, like, every time I've kind of had that similar belief that, like, you've created your own little box that you're living in. And if it's reversed, it's encouraging you to leave that box. And if you're stuck in it, you need to analyze, like, why am I in this box? And it's basically just the shadow work card, honestly. You need to do some serious shadow work on your life. And honestly, sometimes it's a good thing to see that card pop up, kind of like the Tower. Even though they're not, like, the funnest ones to see, sometimes they're the ones that you really need to see. So anyways, I would love to hear your interpretations of this card in the comments down below. Huge thank you to my patrons. I'll have their names here on the screen. If you'd like to support me and get access to exclusive content, it is patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. Make sure to like and subscribe. I post every single day, and until next time, thank you so much for watching, and blessed be.